In Clear Lake, Texas, in the fall of 2002, two beautiful girls decided to befriend an outcast. Christine Paolilla suffered from alopecia, a condition where most, if not all, of her hair falls out. She was lonely and often wore garish makeup and Halloween wigs. Within 3 months, teeming with envy and jealousy, Christine and her boyfriend would do the unthinkable. Welcome back to True Stories. Join our family in exploring some of the most twisted true crime cases. As always, don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Now, let's get into it. When Christine Paolilla was 2 years old, her father died in a construction accident. Widowed and penniless, Christine's mother, Lori, was devastated. She turned to drugs and eventually lost custody of Christine and her older brother, who were sent to live with their grandparents. 3 years later, Christine was diagnosed with alopecia, an autoimmune disease which left her bald and without eyebrows or eyelashes. She was mercilessly bullied in school because of her appearance. On one occasion, a schoolmate even ripped her wig off, leaving her humiliated. Due to the ridicule of her peers, Christine grew up without even an ounce of self-confidence and often came home crying. After a while, Lori persevered and overcame her drug addiction. She found love once again, married, and regained custody of Christine and her brother. The family of 4 moved from New York to Clear Lake City, Texas, for a chance at a fresh start. After only a couple of weeks at her new high school, Christine ran home and excitedly told her parents about her 2 new friends, Rachael Koloroutis and Tiffany Rowell. Rachael and Tiffany were a year older than Christine. They were beautiful, smart, and the most popular girls in school. The trio became the best of friends. Rachael and Tiffany decided to give Christine a makeover to help her fit in. They gave her a makeup lesson and took her shopping for a new wig and new clothes. Christine went from being an outcast to being voted Miss Irresistible. But after Rachael and Tiffany graduated, 17-year-old Christine found herself alone in the halls once again, with no one to fend for her. She was overcome with envy as she watched her 2 best friends pack for college, ready to begin their journey into adulthood. It was then Christine began dating 21-year-old heroin addict Christopher Snyder, who she met in the 8th grade. He was the kind no parents wanted their daughter to bring home for dinner. He was arrogant, possessive, and had a lengthy criminal record. Not to mention he was an adult man dating a girl in high school. Christopher introduced Christine to hard drugs, and before she knew it, she was addicted. Soon, she told stories of an abusive, domineering boyfriend who assaulted her and isolated her from her friends and family. Rachael and Tiffany urged Christine to end the dysfunctional relationship. They promised that she would one day find someone who would treat her with the dignity and respect she deserved, but she refused to listen. According to Christopher's loved ones, Christine was the aggressor in the relationship. If Christopher even glanced in the direction of another girl, she would be overcome with a level of jealousy so fierce she would slap him, spit on him, and even threaten to kill him and his entire family. It was this behavior that earned Christine the nickname, the Psycho, in the Snyder household. Despite their tumultuous relationship, the couple stayed together, and a year into the relationship, Christine went from Miss Irresistible to mass murderer. The most shocking part, however, was that her victims were her best friends, who had loved and supported her from the very beginning. On July 18, 2003, Tiffany and Rachael were hanging out at Tiffany's home with their boyfriends, 19-year-old drug dealer Marcus Priscilla and 21-year-old Adelbert Sanchez. Marcus and Adelbert were also cousins. At 3:30 p.m., Christine and Christopher arrived at the home under the guise of buying drugs. Their real intention was something no one could have predicted. As soon as the couple walked in, they began firing. Rachael was shot in the buttocks as she tried to run away. All 4 were brutally gunned down one by one, and none of them had seen it coming. A total of 40 shots were fired. After the murders, Christopher dropped his partner in crime off at Walgreens for a shift behind the beauty counter. When news of the murders became public, Christine cried to her parents about the loss of her 2 best friends. She refused to attend their funerals, claiming she was too upset. All the while, no one had any idea. A shy, soft-spoken 17-year-old girl was one of those responsible for a massacre so horrific it would change the reputation of Clear Lake forever. The couple left no evidence behind, and the case went unsolved for the next 3 years. Detectives knew that whoever the killer or killers were, they were motivated by intense hatred and sexual envy, particularly for Rachael and Tiffany, who had been the only victims shot in the crotch. Their deaths were described as overkill. Shortly after the murders, Christopher was sent to jail for stealing a car, and Christine admitted herself into rehab, where she met heroin addict Justin Rott. Christine married him for months later and used part of a $360,000 trust fund from her late father to purchase an apartment for the two. Things were going well for Christine until she saw a sketch of herself on the news, wanted for murder. Tiffany's neighbors had seen a suspicious couple wearing black enter her home the day all four were gunned down. They later picked them from a photo lineup as the perpetrators. Panicked, Christine let her husband in on her big, dark secret. Together, they fled the apartment and began hiding out in the San Antonio motel. Plagued with nightmares from his wife's morbid confession, Justin called the police and turned her and Christopher in. 8 months later, when the police raided their motel room on July 19, 2006, the stench nearly incapacitated them. Hundreds of syringes were scattered throughout. Wearing a blood-stained t-shirt and high on heroin, Christine was arrested and charged with 4 counts of capital murder. Meanwhile, Christopher was living with his girlfriend in Greenville, South Carolina. When he learned the police had a warrant out for his arrest, he ran into the woods and committed suicide by overdosing on prescription pills. His body was found on August 5, 2006. A tearful Christine told the jury the robbery was all Christopher's idea, and that she had no idea he was planning to kill anyone until he began shooting. She claimed she was terrified of her then boyfriend, who forced a gun in her hand, put his hand over hers and pressed the trigger, killing her friends. But the evidence showed 2 guns were fired simultaneously, and, in a recorded confession shortly after her arrest, Christine admitted to shooting the gun on her own a million times. In the end, it was Justin Rott's testimony that sealed Christine's fate. In her confession to her husband, Christine said she knew about the murderous plot all along, and that after fleeing the home, she went back to make sure all of the victims were dead. When Christine saw barely alive Rachael crawling to a nearby phone, she bludgeoned her to death with the gun as she cried out and asked why. On October 13, 2008, Christine was convicted of 4 counts of capital murder. She was sentenced to life in prison at the Mountain View Unit in Gatesville, Texas, where she remains to this day. We've come to the end. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to give the video a thumbs up and subscribe. Till next time, for O.